Hi and welcome back. This is Driva and today's card is from the class Beyond Basic Background from the Altinu class page. I decided to do similar card to the one that Lydia did in I think class 4. And that was using some cover die and some freezer paper that I have been having in my stash for like almost forever and never used. I used the circle quilt cover die from Altinu and used that to measure how much of the freezer paper I needed. And I decided to do 2 of them like Lydia did, but yeah, as you can see on the video, my paper was long enough to make 3, but I only made 2 at this point. I folded it in half before cutting, and I made sure that the shiny side was up. And since my beautiful mini blossom is too small for the cover die, I had to use my big shot machine. And since the freezer paper has this wax coating on on one side, because I put the cover die on the shiny side, the wax side, it was like easy peasy taking all the bits and pieces out of the cover die, as you can see. After I had taken all of the cutouts out of the cover die, it was time to stick it to my card base. You do that with the shiny side down. That's the waxy stuff that has to not melt into the card base, but kind of melt though, but not melt, but well, I hope you know what I mean. And I tried using my laminator, that didn't work, and I tried it again, and it didn't work, and I tried it the 3rd time, 4th time, 5th time, and after that I was getting a little bit frustrated, so and I was gonna totally think up a new idea. when I decided to try using my ironing board. So I took this copy paper, folded in half, and put my card base and the freezer paper stencil in the copy paper folder, and used my ironing thingy, and finally the mask stick to my card base. When that was ready, it was time to do the coloring. So I decided to take my metallic watercolor from Altenew and use the color Topaz. It's a gorgeous blue one. It has a shimmery metallic blue rich color, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I just wetted my paintbrush, used that to stick my paper down, and then I just put a lot of water, well, not a lot, but a generous amount of water on my card base, and then it was time for the watercolor ink. And I did like Lydia did in the video for the class. I had it a little bit dark at the top corner, and then just kind of diluted it with water as I went down to the bottom. After the coloring was done, I took my heat gun and went over, ever so slightly over the panel, and then used my heat gun to kind of heat up again the wax from the shiny side of the stencil, and to lift it up from my card base. And it's a little bit satisfying to see everything when you remove the mask, how everything is underneath it. So I think it's so like magic. Oh, and I hope you can see how shiny that color is. It's beautiful. This watercolor metallic colors are beautiful, and that's the stencil, and I'm gonna use that later for another card. You can see it at the end of the video. I had to dry my panel a little bit. It was still a little bit wet, so I went back and front to try to minimize the warping. After my panel was dry, it was time to start putting the card together. So I took a flower I had done previously with the Peony Dream 3D die set, and I colored the cardstock for that flower with the Tranquility inks, and I also used some vellum for the flower. For the sentiment, I used sentiment from the Build a Flower lavender set. Decided to stamp that on vellum, and using some black ink. My panel was a little bit too big for my card base, so I had to snip teeny tiny off of each side for before gluing the card front to the card base. I then took the vellum with the sentiment and cut it into a small strip. Then I thought, but how can I glue it down without the glue showing? So, and yeah, I got a little bit of ink smudging on it, but I'm gonna make it work. So I took the vellum strip and put it through my Siren X glue machine. I decided to that my card base needed a little bit of color, so I took the Stormy Sky, I think the ink is called, from the Tranquility set, and inked up the edges of my card base. I used my paper trimmer to measure my card base to see how much I could needed to take off the card front for it to fit properly. And because I was using some watercolor paper for the card base, I decided to use my red line double-sided tape to glue the card front to my card base. Oh yeah, as you can see, being me, of course, I managed to get some ink smudges on the back side of my card base, but well, hey, who hasn't, right? Now my card base is on my card. Now my card front is on my card base. It was time to glue the flower down, and I decided to keep on using the red line double-sided tape, so the flower would definitely stick on the card base. The sentiment needed a little bit of trimming, And as I said before, I decided to put it through my Siren Mini X machine and make a sticker out of the sentiment. The only trouble with was that because I used vellum, it kind of blended in the background. So I had to lift it up, and some of the watercolor kind of stick to the vellum, and I glued it again to just plain white paper. And I think it's just, it doesn't matter though the watercolor paint shines through. For me, I think it's just kind of adds character to the card, if you will. After my sentiment was on the card, I thought it still needed something, a little bit something. So I took out my Altenew animal dots, and I was deciding on the colors. Didn't quite like any of them, so I took some iridescent sequins. Try that, didn't like them, so I tried again the animal dots, and decided on the rock collection, and use some of those on my card. And that was my card done. I also did another card similar to this one that I didn't videotape. You can see that on there. That's using the same Peony Dream 3D die set, Rose Flurries for the leaf, Build-A-Flower Lavender for sentiment, Tranquility for ink, metallic watercolors in sterling silver, and chevron stencil. Yeah, you can see here I decided to make another panel like with a chevron stencil using the metallic watercolor in I think topaz. No, not topaz. It's the sterling silver. Yeah, the white one. And then I used the Tranquility ink for the blue-gray one. I for the chevron stencil, I used my pixie spray for the first time. If you have that one, or if you haven't tried that one, it's actually quite clever. You just shake the can well, spray evenly a little bit above the stencil, and then you have to wait for like a minute, and then you have like this sticky side on the stencil that you can put on your card, and the stencil doesn't move as much. I probably could have used a little bit more pixie spray, but this worked for me, so I'm happy. And here are my cards done. The main card, the secondary card with a chevron stencil, and then remember the circle quilt stencil we made from the freezer paper. I decided to use just liquid glue and glue that down on the third card base, and you do a card made out of that. That's coming right up. And here that is, I used Ditsy Print, Breezy Bouquet Stamp Set, and Best Sentiment Free Gift for Sentiment. So that's it. Thank you for stopping by, and I hope you liked my cards. Bye.